All right, let's dive into something I think a lot of us can relate to, even if we don't have a name for it. We're talking about the shielded personality. It's a way to understand a whole set of behaviors that are super common, but, well, they're almost always misunderstood.
I mean, has anyone ever hit you with one of these labels, called you cold, distant, or maybe just plain guarded? If you're nodding your head right now, then this is really going to click for you. Because those words, they barely scratch the surface of what's really going on inside.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at this contrast. On one side, you have how people might see you: antisocial, arrogant, unemotional. But when we look at the psychology behind it, the story completely changes. It's not antisocial, it's protective. It's not arrogant, it's autonomous. And this is a big one. It's not unemotional. It's often a sign of being highly self-reliant and even highly sensitive. That's the huge shift in perspective we're exploring.
So let's be really clear. A shielded personality isn't some kind of flaw. It's actually described as a pretty sophisticated adaptation. Think of it like a personal security system you've built over time to protect your inner peace and your freedom. It's a defense, not a defect. So that brings us right to our first big idea. We have to stop looking at this trait as a problem. It's not a flaw. It's a fortress, and it was built for a very, very good reason. And this quote just nails it. This guardedness isn't about being mean or pushing people away for no reason. It's about safety. It's a strategy your mind learned to create a safe place for itself when the outside world didn't always feel that way. Okay, so what does this look like in practice? Well, the first major sign is what we can call learned self-reliance. And this often shows up as this fierce, almost extreme form of independence. A lot of this goes back to childhood. Think about it. If as a kid, your emotional needs were kind of ignored or dismissed, you learn a really powerful lesson, right? You learn to stop asking. It's just safer to rely on yourself. And that carries straight into adulthood. It's why asking for help can feel almost impossible, not because of pride, but because you've been wired to expect that nobody's going to show up. And this is so crucial. The world might look at this hyper-independence and see incredible strength, but really, it's a shield. It's a defense against the risk of depending on someone and getting let down all over again.
This ties right into the second sign, which is this really intense drive for autonomy. You know, that deep need to be in the driver's seat of your own life.
There's a great term for this: psychological reactance. This isn't just about being stubborn. It's that gut-level automatic pushback you feel the second you sense someone is trying to control you or micromanage you or tell you what to do. Your whole system just screams, nope. And here's that reframe again. To someone on the outside, it might just look like you're being difficult. But from your point of view, you're not trying to start a fight. You are defending a core boundary. You're protecting your right to choose for yourself. All right, let's talk about privacy. Because for someone with a shielded personality, privacy isn't just a nice to have, it's a fundamental need. And it's tied to a really unique way of handling boundaries. If this sounds like you, you're probably the kind of person who gets more out of actually living a moment than posting a picture of it. Your sense of worth comes from your own internal compass, not from likes and comments. You might even downplay big deals, like your own birthday, just to avoid that sudden flood of attention. It's all about keeping your identity grounded in who you are, not who the crowd thinks you should be. And this is just fascinating, because people with these shields often put up with a lot of pressure, quietly, for a really long time, but then they hit a wall. It's called a boundary awakening. It starts with just tolerating and ignoring red flags, sometimes for years. Then you hit total psychological overload. Your brain just flips a switch into protection mode. And suddenly, the only option feels like creating total and immediate distance. To others, it can seem like it came out of nowhere, but for you, it's the only way to finally breathe and protect your own sanity. This all leads us to the final, and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle, this incredible contrast between the person you show to the world and the person you are on the inside. So you have this major duality. On the outside, you might seem highly disciplined, very controlled, always observing, what some people call a soldier position. But on the inside, you're actually highly sensitive. You're keenly aware of other people's emotions, and what you value more than anything is emotional security. These two things aren't opposites. They exist together. And that's the whole point. The shield exists because you're so sensitive. It's how you manage it all. It's why you watch people so carefully and build trust at a snail's pace. You're making sure that the very few people you let into your fortress are the ones who will respect its walls.
So once we understand how all these pieces work, we can take the final step. We can shift our whole perspective on this, from seeing it as just protection to seeing it as a source of real empowerment.
Let me be absolutely crystal clear about this. Having these traits does not mean you are broken. It does not mean you are emotionally unstable. There is nothing wrong with you.
Look at it this way. Your shield is proof of your resilience. It is a smart, complex system that you created to get by in a world that, frankly, didn't always make you feel safe or valuable. That's not a flaw. That is a sign of incredible strength. So I'll leave you with this to think about. Now that you can see these patterns not as weaknesses, but as really clever adaptations, what's next? How can you start to consciously use them? How do you take that fierce need for autonomy, that carefully guarded loyalty, and turn them into your absolute greatest strengths? That, right there, is the journey ahead.